Maya Drake had always prided herself on being prepared for anything. As the lead engineer on NASA's Deep Space Reconnaissance mission, she'd run through every possible contingency plan. Solar flares? Covered. Meteoroid impacts? Planned for. But nowhere in her extensive training had anyone mentioned what to do when your escape pod crash-landed on an uncharted planet with breathable atmosphere and sentient blue-skinned aliens who ran underground fighting rings. The crash had destroyed her communication equipment, leaving her with only the contents of her survival pack. After 3 days of cautious exploration through the crystalline forests of the planet she'd dubbed Blue Haven, Maya had spotted lights in the distance. Civilization meant potential help, or at least that's what she told herself as she approached the sprawling metropolis of geometric structures. Just find someone in charge and explain the situation, she muttered, adjusting her makeshift pack. Universal Translator should handle the rest. The device at her throat was experimental technology, but it was her only hope for communication. The city was unlike anything she'd ever seen, towering spires of what looked like living crystal, with beings of various shapes and sizes moving purposefully between them. Most had blue or purple skin in various shades, with elongated limbs and eyes that caught the light oddly. Maya kept to the shadows, following the flow of foot traffic toward a massive domed structure where crowds seemed to be gathering. As she approached, the sounds of cheering and what might have been music pulsed from within. A side entrance stood unguarded, and Maya slipped inside, hoping to find someone who might help her contact Earth, or at least understand what Earth was. Instead, she found herself in a preparation area of sorts. Beings of various species were stretching, applying substances to their skin, or meditating in corners. Before Maya could retreat, a tall, slender figure with iridescent blue skin approached her, eyes scanning a translucent tablet. "You're late. Replacement fighters should arrive 2 hours before their slot." The translator at Maya's throat rendered the clicks and trills into English. "I'm not," Maya began, but the blue-skinned being had already moved on, calling over their shoulder. "Arena 3, 5 minutes. You're facing a Dralaxian bruiser. Try to last longer than the last off-worlder." Panic bloomed in Maya's chest. "Wait. I'm not a fighter. I'm an astronaut from Earth, I." A heavy door slid open, and cheering flooded the chamber. 2 fighters emerged, one victorious, the other being carried on a floating stretcher. The crowd's energy was electric, hungry for more. "Earth? Never heard of it," said another voice. Maya turned to find herself face to face with the most striking being she'd ever seen. Tall and powerfully built with violet skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light, the alien had piercing silver eyes and a crown of what looked like crystalline horns. "I'm Clara. My father runs this establishment. I'm Maya Drake. I'm not supposed to be here. My ship crashed in." "A crashed ship? Interesting." Clara circled Maya appraisingly. "Well, you're on the roster now, and backing out means disqualification and expulsion to the outer districts. You wouldn't last a day there." Maya swallowed hard. "And if I fight?" Clara's mouth curved into something like a smile. "Win, and you'll have earned the right to request sanctuary. My father respects strength above all else. And if I lose? Try not to." Clara handed Maya what appeared to be lightweight armor. "This is your only chance, Earthling. I suggest you take it." Before Maya could respond, attendants surrounded her, fitting the strange armor over her flight suit. Minutes later, she found herself pushed through a doorway and into a circular arena filled with roaring spectators. Across from her stood a massive being with 4 arms and gray, rock-like skin. As a signal sounded, Maya realized she'd made a terrible mistake. But as the Dralaxian charged, something unexpected happened. Her NASA training kicked in. Zero-G combat simulations had given her excellent reflexes and an understanding of momentum. She dodged, spun, and used her opponent's weight against them. To her shock, within minutes, the Dralaxian was on the ground, and the crowd was chanting in a language her translator couldn't keep up with. As she stood there panting, Maya locked eyes with Clara, who was watching from a private box, expression unreadable. Maya had just become the accidental champion of an alien fight club. And something told her this was only the beginning. The roar of the crowd still echoed in Maya's ears as Clara led her through a maze of crystalline corridors beneath the arena. Her victory against the Dralaxian had left her with bruised knuckles and a split lip, but the adrenaline coursing through her veins numbed the pain. What troubled her more was the dawning realization that she might be trapped on this planet indefinitely. That was unexpected, Clara said, her silver eyes appraising Maya with new interest. Most offworlders don't last 10 seconds against a Dralaxian, let alone defeat one. I got lucky, Maya replied, wiping blood from her lip. On Earth, I trained in low-gravity combat scenarios. Your arena's gravitational field is similar. Clara's crystalline horns glimmered as she tilted her head. Luck had nothing to do with it. You adapted quickly, used your environment. Father will be pleased. They arrived at an ornate door that slid open to reveal a lavish chamber. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing various angles of the fighting arena. An imposing figure stood with his back to them, watching replays of Maya's fight. Father, this is the Earthling, Maya Drake. The figure turned, and Maya found herself facing an older version of Clara. His violet skin was darker, crisscrossed with luminescent scars, and his crystalline horns formed a full crown. Where Clara's eyes were silver, his were a deep gold that seemed to pierce through Maya. Vextor Draxus, he introduced himself, voice rumbling like distant thunder. Master of the Nexus Arena and overseer of Zorvia's combat guild. Maya straightened her spine. Sir, there's been a misunderstanding. I'm not a fighter, I'm an astronaut from Earth. My ship crashed, and I need to find a way to contact my people. Vextor circled her slowly. There is no misunderstanding, Earthling. You entered the arena. You fought. You won. He gestured to one of the screens showing her victory. By the ancient laws of Zoria, you have earned citizenship through combat. Citizenship? Maya blinked. I don't want citizenship. I want to go home. Clara stepped forward. Father, perhaps I could explain our ways to the Earthling. She clearly doesn't understand the honor she's been granted. Vextor nodded. See that she does. Her next fight is scheduled in 3 cycles. If she continues to impress, she may earn the right to make requests of the guild. With that, he turned back to the screens, dismissing them both. Clara led Maya to another chamber, smaller, but no less luxurious, with a view of the crystalline city stretching to the horizon. This will be your quarters while you're with us, Clara said, touching a panel that caused a bed to emerge from the wall. You should rest. I'll return later to begin your instruction. Instruction in what? Maya asked, exhaustion finally catching up to her. Clara's lips curved into that almost smile again. In how to survive Zoria, of course. Maya awoke to find Clara seated cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by floating holograms depicting various fighting techniques. The violet-skinned alien wore a close-fitting training outfit that accentuated her athletic build. Good. You're awake, Clara said, dismissing the holograms with a wave. We have much to cover. Over the next several hours, Clara explained the complex social hierarchy of Zorvian society. The Combat Guild, it seemed, was one of 5 major powers that governed the planet, with fighting prowess determining status within the guild. So your father is basically the king of fighters? Maya asked, trying to process it all. Clara laughed, a sound like crystal chimes. Not exactly. He's more like... What would your Earth term be? A commissioner? The one who enforces the rules of combat and ensures the traditions are upheld. And what's your role in all this? Clara's expression shifted, becoming guarded. I am to be bonded to the champion of this season's grand tournament. It's tradition. Bonded? Like marriage? Maya felt an unexpected twinge of disappointment. Similar, though more binding. Our essences would be linked through ritual. Clara stood abruptly. But that's not your concern. What matters is preparing you for your next fight. The training that followed was intense. Clara taught Maya the fundamentals of Zorvian combat, a fluid style that utilized momentum and an energy they called kivar, which seemed similar to what humans might call bioelectricity. Your body already has kivar, Clara explained, placing her hand on Maya's arm. A tingling sensation spread from the contact point. You just need to learn to channel it. Maya tried to ignore how her skin warmed under Clara's touch. And this will help me win fights? It will help you survive them, Clara corrected. And winning enough fights might earn you an audience with the Stellar Council. They could potentially help you contact your world. Hope flickered in Maya's chest. Then I'd better learn quickly. Days passed in a blur of training, meals of strange but nutritious foods, and learning about Zorvian culture. Clara proved to be a patient but demanding teacher, pushing Maya's limits while ensuring she didn't injure herself. What surprised Maya most was how quickly she began to enjoy Clara's company. The alien was intelligent, witty when she chose to be, and possessed a depth of knowledge that fascinated Maya. Sometimes, when they took breaks from training, Clara would ask about Earth, listening intently as Maya described oceans, forests, and human cities. Your world sounds beautiful, Clara said one evening as they shared a meal on the balcony overlooking the city. The 3 moons of Zoria cast a silvery glow over everything, making Clara's skin shimmer. It is, Maya agreed. But I have to admit, Zoria has its own kind of beauty. Clara's silver eyes met hers. Perhaps you could show me someday if your people have the technology to travel here intentionally. I'd like that, Maya replied, surprised by how much she meant it. The moment was interrupted by a chime. Clara checked her wrist device and frowned. Your next opponent has been announced. Jaxul the Decimator. Maya recognized the name from her studies. The 7-foot warrior with retractable bone blades? Great. Clara's expression turned serious. Maya, there's something you should know. Jaxul is currently the tournament favorite and my father's choice for my bonding partner. The implications hit Maya like a physical blow. She wasn't just fighting for her chance to go home anymore. She was potentially fighting for Clara's future. And somehow, that made it matter even more. Part 3, Rising Through the Ranks. The Nexus arena hummed with anticipation, the crystalline architecture amplifying the excited murmurs of the crowd into a symphony of expectation. Maya stood in the preparation chamber, her newly acquired combat suit fitted perfectly to her form. The lightweight armor was embedded with circuits that helped channel her kivar, an energy she was still learning to control but could now summon in brief bursts. Remember what we practiced, Clara said, adjusting Maya's gauntlets. Jaxul relies on intimidation and raw strength. He's never faced someone with your agility. Maya nodded, trying to control her breathing. In the 3 weeks since her accidental entrance into Zorvian fighting culture, she had won 4 matches against increasingly difficult opponents. Each victory had elevated her status among the combat guild and earned her privileges, better quarters, access to training facilities, and most importantly, time with Clara. What happens if I beat him? Maya asked, voicing the question that had been haunting her since learning Jaxul was Clara's intended bondmate. Clara's silver eyes flickered with an emotion Maya couldn't identify. Let's focus on survival first. Clara. Maya caught her arm, feeling the warmth of the alien skin beneath her fingers. Tell me the truth. The violet-skinned warrior sighed. If you defeat Jaxul, you would take his position in the tournament rankings. Theoretically, if you continued to win, you could become champion, and then. She trailed off. And then your father would expect you to bond with me instead, Maya finished. Clara's crystalline horns caught the light as she nodded. It's more complicated than that. The bonding is political as much as traditional. My father seeks to strengthen ties with Jaxul's clan. Before Maya could respond, a chime sounded, signaling that it was time. Clara unexpectedly stepped forward and pressed her forehead against Maya's, an intimate gesture among Zorvians. Fight well, Earthling, she whispered, her breath warm against Maya's skin. I'll be watching. The arena doors slid open, and Maya stepped into the circular battleground, the roar of the crowd washing over her. Across the arena stood Jaxul, every bit the 7-foot mountain of muscle and bone that his reputation suggested. His gray-green skin was covered in ritual scarifications, and as he flexed his forearms, serrated bone blades extended from beneath his skin. The off-worlder who thinks she belongs among us, Jaxul's voice boomed, amplified for the audience. I will return you to the stars in pieces. Maya channeled her Kivar as Clara had taught her, feeling the energy crackling through her limbs. Big talk for someone who's never faced an Earthling before. The battle signal sounded, and Jaxul charged with surprising speed for his size. Maya dodged sideways, her NASA training combining with Clara's techniques to keep her just beyond his reach. The alien warrior was powerful but predictable, each swing of his bone blades following patterns Maya had studied in Clara's combat archives. As the fight progressed, Maya realized she couldn't match Jaxul's strength, but she didn't need to. The arena's properties, slightly lower gravity than Earth normal, crystalline surfaces that conducted Kivar, gave her advantages if used correctly. She led Jaxul in a dance around the arena, letting him tire himself while she conserved energy. 10 minutes in, Maya saw her opportunity. Jaxul, frustrated by his inability to land a solid blow, overextended on a thrust. Maya slid beneath his guard, channeled Kivar into her palm as Clara had shown her, and struck the weak point in his armor, directly over the nerve cluster that served as a Zorvian's equivalent to a solar plexus. Jaxul froze, his systems momentarily overloaded by the Kivar discharge. Maya followed with a sweeping kick that sent the massive warrior crashing to the ground. Before he could recover, she placed her foot on his chest and her hand near his throat, fingers crackling with energy. Yield, she said firmly. For a tense moment, the arena fell silent. Then, to everyone's shock, Jaxul laughed, a rumbling sound like rocks in a tumbler. The Earthling has spirit, he announced. I yield to her skill. The crowd erupted. Maya stepped back, offering a hand to help Jaxul up as Clara had taught her was proper after victory. The warrior accepted, rising to his feet and giving Maya a respectful nod before departing the arena. Maya's victory celebration was short-lived. As soon as she returned to the preparation chamber, she found not only Clara waiting but also Vextor Draxus himself, his golden eyes narrowed in calculation. Impressive, he said, reviewing the fight on a holographic display. You've become quite the sensation among our people, Maya of Earth. Thank you, Overseer, Maya replied, using his formal title as Clara had instructed. Your victory over Jaxul changes things, Vextor continued. You are now ranked among our elite fighters, which grants you certain privileges and responsibilities. Clara stepped forward. Father, Maya fought for her freedom, not for political standing. She seeks to return to her world. Vextor's expression hardened. Is that so? Then perhaps she should not have interfered in matters beyond her understanding. He turned back to Maya. Did Clara explain what defeating Jaxul means? Maya glanced at Clara, whose face remained carefully neutral. She mentioned there might be political implications. Indeed. Vextor's laugh held no humor. You have disrupted a carefully negotiated alliance between our clan and Jaxul's. As recompense, you will continue to fight and bring glory to the combat guild. Should you become champion, we will discuss your desire to return home." With that, he swept from the room, leaving Maya alone with Clara. "I'm sorry," Clara said once her father was gone. "I should have explained more clearly what was at stake." "Would it have changed anything?" Maya asked. "I needed to win to have any chance of going home." Clara's expression softened. "And now you're even further entangled in our politics." Maya sighed, removing her gauntlets. "So what happens now?" "Now, you are officially a contender for the championship," Clara explained. "More difficult opponents. Higher stakes." She hesitated before adding, "and more attention from all 5 guilds. Including attention from whoever your father wanted to ally with through your bonding," Maya guessed. Clara nodded. Jaxul's clan controls much of Zorvia's orbital defenses. They're not known for their forgiveness. Maya felt a headache forming. What had started as a simple fight for survival had evolved into something far more complex. "I never meant to disrupt your life, Clara." "Perhaps it needed disrupting," Clara replied softly. She moved closer, her silver eyes searching Maya's face. "There's something you should know. The bonding, it wasn't my choice. None of it was. Until you arrived." The implication of her words hung in the air between them. Maya found herself acutely aware of how close Clara stood, how the light played across her violet skin, how her own heart raced in response. "So what is your choice?" Maya asked, voice barely above a whisper. Clara's answer came not in words but in action. She closed the distance between them, pressing her lips to Maya's in a kiss that sent Kivar crackling through both their bodies. The sensation was electric, overwhelming, a connection deeper than physical. When they finally parted, Clara's eyes glowed with inner light. "That," she said breathlessly, "is my choice. Though by our laws, it may be impossible." Maya knew she should be focused on getting home, on contacting Earth. Instead, she found herself drawn into the gravity of this new feeling, this connection to Clara that defied explanation. "I've never been good at accepting impossible," Maya replied, pulling Clara close again. In the background, a display showed her next match had been scheduled, against an opponent even more formidable than Jaxul. The path to championship, and possibly home, would only grow more dangerous. But for now, in this moment with Clara, Maya found herself wondering if returning to Earth was still what she wanted most. 6 victories. Each more difficult than the last. Maya's rise through the ranks of Zorvia's combat guild had become the sensation of the season. Where once the crowds had viewed her as a curiosity, an off-worlder who'd stumbled into their world, they now chanted her name as she entered the arena. Dereke! Dereke! The sound reverberated through the crystalline dome, a thunderous acknowledgement of her prowess. Maya examined her reflection in the polished surface of her quarters. She barely recognized herself anymore. Her body had become leaner, stronger, the muscles more defined from constant training. Faint blue lines traced her skin where her Kivar channels had developed, a biological adaptation that Clara claimed was unprecedented for an off-worlder. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They held a confidence, a purpose that hadn't been there when she'd first crash-landed on this alien world. "Becoming Zorvian suits you," Clara remarked, entering the room with a data tablet. Her violet skin seemed to glow in the morning light streaming through the crystal walls. Maya smiled. "Not entirely Zorvian yet." She flexed her fingers, watching the Kivar energy shimmer beneath her skin. "Though I'm getting there." Their relationship had deepened over the past weeks, stolen moments between training sessions evolving into nights spent learning each other's bodies, discovering the strange and wonderful ways their physiologies differed and complemented one another. Clara had taught Maya about the intimate aspects of Kivar sharing, a level of connection that transcended the physical. Yet beneath their growing bond lay a current of tension. Maya was now ranked second in the tournament, with only the championship match remaining. Her opponent would be Dravkor, Jaxul's clan leader and the most feared warrior on Zoria. Victory would mean a legitimate claim to Clara under Zorvian law, but it would also earn the eternal enmity of a powerful clan. "My father wishes to speak with you," Clara said, her expression turning serious. "About tomorrow's match?" Maya nodded, having expected this. Vextor had maintained a calculating distance since her victory over Jaxul, observing her progress but rarely engaging directly. Whatever he wanted now, on the eve of the championship, couldn't be good. They found the overseer in his private training facility, a vast chamber where holographic opponents materialized for combat practice. Vextor himself was engaged in battle with 3 such constructs, his movements fluid and devastating despite his age. As Maya entered, he dismissed the holograms with a wave. "Maya of Earth," he acknowledged, wiping perspiration from his brow. "Your final test approaches." "I'm prepared," Maya replied with more confidence than she felt. Vextor's golden eyes narrowed. "Are you?" Dravkor has never been defeated in single combat. He has killed 17 challengers in his career. "Father," Clara interjected. "Is this necessary?" "Silence," Vextor snapped. "This concerns the future of our clan." He turned back to Maya. "There is a solution that preserves all interests. Concede the match." Maya blinked. "You want me to lose on purpose?" "I want you to acknowledge reality," Vextor corrected. "Dravkor will not show mercy. He views you as an insult to Zorvian tradition, an offworlder who has risen above her station. If you concede honorably, you retain your rank and privileges. If you fight and lose..." He let the implication hang in the air. "And if I fight and win?" Maya challenged. Vextor's expression hardened. "Then you become champion, with all that entails. Including the right to claim my daughter's bond." He stepped closer, his voice lowering. "I have observed your relationship. Do not think it has gone unnoticed." Clara moved protectively toward Maya. "Father, you cannot." "I can and I will," Vextor interrupted. "The alliance with Dravkor's clan is vital for our people's security. Your personal desires are irrelevant." Maya felt anger rising within her, Kivar responding to her emotions by crackling beneath her skin. Clara isn't a political bargaining chip. She deserves to choose her own path. Vextor laughed bitterly. "How quaint. Earth values, I presume?" He shook his head. "This is Zorvia. Tradition and duty supersede individual wants." "Maybe they shouldn't," Maya replied evenly. A dangerous silence fell. Finally, Vextor spoke, his voice cold. "You have until tomorrow to make your decision. Choose wisely, Earthling." He turned and left the chamber, his disapproval hanging in the air like a physical presence. Once alone, Clara took Maya's hands. "I'm sorry. I should have known he would try this." Maya squeezed her hands gently. "What do you want, Clara? Not what tradition demands, not what your father wants. What do you want?" Clara's silver eyes met Maya's, vulnerability evident in their depths. "I want you," she answered simply. "But I also fear for you. Dravkor is unlike any opponent you've faced. He fights to kill, not to win." Maya pulled Clara close, inhaling the faint floral scent that was uniquely hers. "Then I'll just have to fight better." The championship arena was twice the size of the regular fighting grounds, its crystalline surfaces inlaid with ancient Zorvian symbols that glowed with power. The crowd was the largest Maya had ever seen, tens of thousands of spectators from all 5 guilds gathered to witness the ultimate combat. Maya stood in the preparation chamber, performing the centering exercises Clara had taught her. Her combat suit had been upgraded for this final match, reinforced with deflection technology that might give her a fighting chance against Dravkor's legendary strength. "He will target your left side," Clara said, making final adjustments to Maya's armor. "You favor it slightly when you're tired." Maya nodded, grateful for the tactical advice but more grateful simply for Clara's presence. After Vextor's ultimatum, Clara had spent the night teaching Maya advanced combat techniques, pushing her to the limits of her abilities. "Clara," Maya said, catching her hand. "Whatever happens today." "Don't," Clara interrupted. "Don't speak as if this is farewell." Maya smiled gently. "I was going to say, whatever happens today, I'm fighting for us. Not for rank, not for a way home. For us." Clara's expression softened. She reached up to touch Maya's face, tracing the faint blue lines of Kivar that had formed beneath her skin. "You've become more Zorvian than you know," she whispered. "Our legends speak of soul threads, connections that transcend physical bodies. I believe that's what we've found." The pre-match signal sounded, cutting their moment short. Clara pressed her forehead to Maya's, that intimate Zorvian gesture that had come to mean so much, before stepping back. "Fight with your heart, Maya Drake of Earth. I will be watching." Maya entered the arena to a cacophony of sound. Half the crowd chanted her name, while the other half called for Dravkor. The clan leader himself already stood in the center of the fighting ground, a mountain of a being nearly 8 feet tall, his gray-green skin covered in ceremonial armor that glowed with ancient power. Unlike Jaxul's bone blades, Dravkor wielded a traditional energy staff that crackled with concentrated Kivar. As Maya approached, she could feel the weight of thousands of eyes upon her, including those of Vextor Draxus, who sat in the overseer's box with other guild leaders. His expression was unreadable, but the message from their earlier conversation was clear: concede or face the consequences. "The Offworlder approaches," Dravkor announced, his voice like grinding stone. "Come to die on Zorvian soil." Maya channeled her Kivar, letting the energy flow through her body as Clara had taught her. "I come to fight, Dravkor. With honor." The clan leader's eyes narrowed. "There is no honor in your presence here. You have corrupted our traditions, seduced a guild daughter, and insulted my clan." He twirled his energy staff, creating a dangerous arc of power. "I will correct these errors." The battle signal sounded, and Dravkor attacked with unexpected speed. Maya barely had time to dodge, the energy staff passing so close she could feel its heat against her face. She retaliated with a series of Kivar-enhanced strikes, testing Dravkor's defenses. It quickly became apparent that this fight would be unlike any she had faced before. Dravkor combined raw power with centuries of combat experience, anticipating Maya's moves almost before she made them. Each time she thought she'd found an opening, the clan leader would counter with devastating precision. The grand hall of the 5 guilds shimmered with ceremonial light, crystal chandeliers refracting the morning sun into thousands of rainbow patterns across the gathered assembly. Maya stood on the central platform, dressed in the formal attire of a Zorvian champion, a flowing garment of midnight blue with silver inlays that traced her Kivar pathways, complementing the now permanent blue lines that marked her skin. 2 months had passed since her victory over Dravkor. 2 months of diplomatic meetings, cultural ceremonies, and unprecedented changes within Zorvian society. As the first Offworlder champion in recorded history, Maya had become both a celebrity and a catalyst for transformation. "The council recognizes champion Maya Drake," announced Elder Treeska, the wizened leader of the Science Guild. Her pink-hued skin had faded to almost white with age, but her eyes remained sharp as she addressed the assembly. "You have petitioned for access to our stellar communication array. The 5 guilds have reached a decision." Maya nodded respectfully, conscious of the elaborate protocol Clara had drilled into her. Beside her stood Clara herself, resplendent in the violet formal wear of the Combat Guild's ruling family, her crystalline horns adorned with delicate silver chains. Before we announce our verdict, Vextor Draxus spoke up from his position among the Combat Guild elders. There is a matter of tradition to address. His golden eyes fixed on Maya. Champion Drake has earned the right to claim my daughter, Clara Draxus, as her bonded partner. This right remains unclaimed. A murmur swept through the assembly. In the weeks following the championship, Maya and Clara's relationship had become public knowledge, but the formal bonding ceremony, typically performed immediately after a championship, had not taken place. This deliberate delay had sparked rumors throughout Zorvian society. Elder Triska raised a thin hand for silence. Champion Drake, what say you to this matter? Will you exercise your right of claiming? Maya took a deep breath, glancing at Clara. They had discussed this moment extensively, planning each word with careful consideration for both Zorvian tradition and their shared future. Honorable elders of the 5 guilds, Maya began, her translator now unnecessary as she had become fluent in the complex clicks and trills of the Zorvian language. On Earth, we have a saying, home is where the heart is. When I arrived on Zoria, my only goal was to find a way back to my planet, to the home I had always known. She turned slightly toward Clara, their eyes meeting in a moment of perfect understanding. But during my time here, I discovered something unexpected. I found a new heart, one that beats in harmony with Clara's. And yet, I still carry my responsibility to Earth, to my people who must believe me lost forever. Vextor leaned forward, his expression intense. What precisely are you proposing, champion? A compromise, Maya answered, turning back to the assembly. I request permission to use the stellar communication array to contact Earth, not to arrange my return, but to establish first contact between our worlds. To build a bridge between Zoria and Earth that might benefit both. Clara stepped forward then, her voice clear and confident. And I request permission to accompany Champion Drake as Zorvia's first ambassador to Earth, should such contact prove successful. Another wave of murmurs, louder this time, rippled through the hall. Cross-planetary diplomacy was unprecedented in Zorvian history. The planet had maintained a policy of isolationism for millennia, interacting only with a handful of trusted trading partners. Elder Moxdar of the Diplomatic Guild, a tall, thin Zorvian with pale blue skin, rose from his seat. This would require a fundamental shift in our approach to off-world relations. The implications are significant. As are the potential benefits, countered Triska. Champion Drake's vessel contained technology unknown to us. Earth might offer innovations that could advance our own development. The debate continued for nearly an hour, representatives from each guild weighing in on the proposal. Maya stood patiently through it all, her hand occasionally brushing against Clara's in a subtle gesture of support. Finally, the 5 guild elders conferred privately before Triska raised her hand for attention. The guilds have reached consensus, she announced. Champion Drake will be granted access to the stellar communication array, with supervision from the Science Guild. Should contact with Earth prove viable, we will consider the matter of ambassadorial exchange. Maya felt a surge of relief and excitement. This was more than she had dared hope for. As for the matter of bonding, Triska continued, turning to address both Maya and Clara, the guilds recognize that new circumstances may require new traditions. We propose a conditional bonding, one that acknowledges your commitment while allowing for the diplomatic flexibility your proposal requires. Clara stepped forward. What form would this conditional bonding take, Elder? Vextor answered instead, rising from his seat. A soul thread ceremony, rather than a full essence bond. It would connect you spiritually while maintaining your individual autonomies. There was something in his voice, a hint of emotion that Maya had never heard from the stoic overseer. It would be appropriate for 2 pioneers venturing into unknown territory. Maya glanced at Clara, whose silver eyes shimmered with barely contained joy. A soul thread ceremony, the very connection Clara had mentioned before the championship match. It was perfect. We accept, they answered in unison. The Science Guild's communication facility was built atop the highest crystal spire in the capital city, its array of delicate instruments reaching toward the stars like metallic flowers seeking light. Maya stood at the control console, her hands hovering over unfamiliar interfaces as Triska's assistants made final adjustments. The signal will take approximately 14 of your Earth days to reach the solar system, explained Lanvar, the facility's chief technician. We've calibrated for the temporal drift and spatial coordinates you provided. Maya nodded, her heart racing. After months on Zoria, she was about to reach out to home, to let NASA know she had survived, to begin building a connection between worlds that had never before known of each other's existence. Clara placed a hand on Maya's shoulder, her touch carrying the familiar tingle of shared kivar, stronger now since their soul thread ceremony 3 days prior. The ritual had been intimate and profound, creating a bond that both could feel as a constant gentle awareness of each other, regardless of distance. Are you ready? Clara asked softly. Maya placed her hand over Clara's. I think so. Though I'm not sure NASA is ready to receive a message from their presumed dead engineer telling them she's become an alien champion and is bringing her Zorvian partner home to meet the family. Clara laughed, the sound still reminiscent of crystal chimes. Perhaps omit certain details in the initial communication. Transmission parameters set, announced Lanvar. You may begin your message when ready, champion. Maya took a deep breath and activated the recording function. This is Engineer Maya Drake of NASA Mission DS-317, transmitting from the planet designated locally as Zoria. My ship experienced catastrophic failure during the solar flare on March 15, but I survived crash landing on this previously unknown world. I am alive and well, and have made first contact with an advanced civilization. She continued speaking for several minutes, providing coordinates, technical details, and a brief overview of Zorvian society, carefully edited to focus on diplomatic and scientific aspects that would most interest Earth authorities. She concluded with a proposal for continued communication and eventual diplomatic exchange. When she finished, Lanvar initiated the transmission sequence. The massive array above them hummed to life, its components realigning to focus on the distant star that Maya had once called home. Transmission complete, Lanvar confirmed after several minutes. Now we wait. Maya turned to Clara, emotion welling up inside her. It's done. Whatever happens next, there's no going back. Clara took both of Maya's hands in hers, their soul thread connection pulsing with shared feeling. No going back, she agreed. Only forward, together. The response from Earth came sooner than expected, just 11 days after their transmission. Maya was summoned to the communication facility in the middle of the night, Clara accompanying her through the silent crystal streets. We received a directed pulse response following your transmission pattern, Lanvar explained excitedly as they arrived. The Science Guild has been working to decode it. Elder Triska herself sat at the main console, her aged fingers dancing across the controls with surprising dexterity. Champion Drake, we believe we have successfully translated the message. Would you like to review it? Maya stepped forward, her heart pounding. On the screen before her appeared text in English, beautifully, familiarly human English. DS-317 Engineer Drake, message received. Confirmation of identity and coordinates acknowledged. Stand by for follow-up transmission in 72 hours. NASA Deep Space Recovery Protocol activated. Maintain position and signal. Drake, the entire world is celebrating your survival. Director Chen, NASA First Contact Division. Maya read the message 3 times, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. They had heard her. Earth knew she was alive. And more importantly, they were responding not with fear or aggression toward Zoria, but with careful, measured protocol. They've activated first contact protocols, she explained to the assembled Zorvians. It's a framework we developed for exactly this scenario, though I never imagined I'd be on the other side of it. Clara moved to Maya's side, reading the alien text with curiosity. What happens next? They'll send a more comprehensive message, probably with questions about Zoria and proposals for how to proceed. Maya turned to Elder Triska. We have 72 hours to prepare our response. I recommend forming a committee with representatives from all guilds to draft it. Vextor, who had arrived shortly after Maya and Clara, nodded in approval. A wise suggestion. The Combat Guild will participate, of course. Over the next 3 days, Maya worked tirelessly with the committee, helping them understand Earth protocols and advising on how best to present Zorvian society to humans. Clara remained by her side throughout, the sole thread between them providing comfort during moments of stress and fatigue. When NASA's follow-up transmission arrived, it confirmed Maya's predictions. Earth was proposing a careful, staged approach to diplomatic relations, beginning with regular communication and eventually progressing to an exchange of representatives. The message concluded with a personal note. Engineer Drake, your service to humanity in establishing this historic contact will be remembered for generations. A position as Earth's first ambassador to Zoria awaits you, should you choose to accept. Director Chen. Maya stared at the screen, a future she had never imagined unfolding before her. Ambassador Drake. A life split between two worlds, with Clara at her side. Will you accept? Clara asked softly, sensing Maya's thoughts through their bond. Maya turned to her, seeing in Clara's silver eyes all the adventure and love that lay ahead. Only if you'll be my co-ambassador. Earth will need to understand Zoria as much as Zoria needs to understand Earth. Clara smiled, her expression radiant. 2 worlds, 1 future. 2 hearts, 1 soul thread, Maya replied, completing the phrase from their ceremony. 6 months later, Maya stood on the landing platform of Zorvia's newly constructed Interplanetary Reception Center, watching as Earth's first official diplomatic vessel descended through the crystalline clouds. Beside her stood Clara, now formally recognized as Zorvia's ambassador to Earth, her traditional garments modified to incorporate elements of Earth fashion, a symbolic blending of cultures that reflected their personal journey. Behind them stood representatives from all 5 guilds, including Vextor Draxus, whose initial resistance to their relationship had gradually transformed into grudging respect and eventually, genuine support. The Combat Guild Overseer had become one of the strongest advocates for the Earth-Zoria alliance, recognizing the strategic advantages of such a partnership. Nervous? Clara asked, the soul thread between them humming with shared anticipation. Maya laughed. A little. It's not every day you introduce your alien partner to your home world's representatives. At least we've had time to prepare them, Clara replied, referring to the months of detailed communications they had exchanged with Earth authorities, gradually introducing humans to Zorvian biology, culture, and society. As the Earth vessel completed its landing sequence, Maya reflected on the strange path that had brought her here. What had begun as a catastrophic accident had transformed into the greatest adventure of her life, and not just her life, but potentially the future of both worlds. The vessel's hatch opened, and the first human delegation to Zoria emerged, their expressions of wonder visible even from a distance as they took in the crystalline landscape and the assembled alien welcoming committee. Maya stepped forward, Clara at her side, their hands linked in the formal Zorvian greeting posture that they had taught Earth's diplomats via video transmission. On behalf of Zoria and Earth, Maya announced in both English and Zorvian, "We welcome you to the beginning of a new era of cooperation between our worlds." As the human delegates approached, Maya felt Clara's emotions flowing through their soul thread, excitement, nervousness, and above all, love. New Horizons, Clara whispered, echoing the title they had given to the joint Earth-Zorvian initiative they had founded. Maya squeezed her hand gently. Together. The accidental champion of an alien fight club and the violet-skinned warrior who had captured her heart stood at the threshold of history, two beings from different worlds who had found in each other something greater than either had imagined possible. And as Maya Drake made the formal introductions between the species that would forever change the course of both civilizations, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them as they had faced everything since that first day in the arena. Together, one fight at a time, forging a path that no one had traveled before.